Okay, hello. We are going to start the discussion group, and this group is formed by Samara, by Nadia, and Karen.
Hello, I'm Sam.
We will be discussing the topic of the article Online University Teaching During and After the COVID-19 Crisis, Refocusing Teacher Presence and Learning Activity. Okay, here are some of the questions that we will be discussing. The first one is, do you consider that your pedagogical content knowledge was enough when you started to teach? The second one is, how do you handle the design of your lessons? The third one is, what is the most important when you plan your online lesson? The fourth one, what do you think is missing between online education and emergency remote teaching? The fifth one is, which approach do you prefer in your classes, tool-based or material-based? The sixth, how do you guide and monitor the work of your students in synchronous and asynchronous lessons? And the last one is, how do you handle evaluation in online teaching? Okay, so we will start with this one. Do you consider that your pedagogical content knowledge was enough when you started teaching? And Nadia, could you start, please?
Yes. Well, I don't consider I had enough pedagogical content knowledge because it involves the knowledge about the design of the lesson, all of those principles. And I think that even when we are in the VA, it is really complicated to know everything we will need. I mean, we had a class of technologies for teaching in the first semester. You only had the tools, but we didn't know how to apply them and how to effectively use them for our classes, especially during this emergency like switch to online teaching. So no, I don't think I had the pedagogical content knowledge.
And what about you, Sam? Is it the same situation as Nadia?
Teaching, I was in the fourth semester. I don't know, but I had already the pedagogical content or knowledge. Um, well, not enough because never is enough. I had it. I clearly think that never is enough when learning. But when I start teaching, I think that I had like some techniques or methods that I know as long as I was in the course based on the author's opinion. And I think that you will never be prepared enough for any circumstances because you can face different issues, not only for this pandemic emergency, but also for personal things that a student might face, or problems, or issues with the environment.
And you both agree that you had some knowledge, but even though you had that knowledge, you are still preparing yourself.
The thing is to keep yourself updating in to get the easier method or technique, the easiest way for students to learn and acquire the knowledge that you want them to acquire.
So we will go on to the next question. How do you handle the design of your lesson? And do you think that your designs are of good quality? So what do you think, Samara?
I design my lessons depending the audience that I'm going to design it for, whether they are children, adults, or youngers. Also, I take into account not only the level but also the materials that they can get or they can take at hand, or that can be easy for them to get. For example, I I try to don't, for example, with children, I try to don't be so um, formal with the language, and I try to be more dynamic. For my design, I think they can be better in terms of quality, but I think but by now, according to the knowledge that I have gotten, I think I have achieved my goals.
Okay, thank you, Samara. What about you, Nadia?
Well, when I design a lesson, I try to consider all of the factors that take place. For example, the tools that they have, the materials they have, the internet connection, the I don't know, everything. So I think it's really complicated to manage to create a lesson plan that includes all of this in an effective way. So my designs, I think they are good, but not good enough because I still lack some like formality when doing them. I just try to be as efficient as possible. So most of the times I don't consider what could go wrong or stuff like that. I just try to make sure that my students are learning something and that they take advantage of the class.
So now you both are taking into consideration this new reality that is online teaching, right? In your lessons.
Just to mention something about the article that says that due to this pandemic, to this quarantine stuff, now you need to consider to do your lessons student centered. What does this mean? That you need your students to be more autonomous. You need to give them the tools, but also to design um, very careful to not get distracted, because obviously we get easily distracted when we are on internet. So you need to be focusing in times, materials, the videos, the listening material that you are going to use. Needs to be mostly student centered.
Yes, I just remembered that it is complicated to do all of this, but as I was saying, my lesson plans might not be so good because according to the reading, they explained that a good quality design should be clear and have objectives and all of these things that I think it's really complicated to achieve all of this amount of information and taking care of every single like thing that could happen.
Yes, and maybe we don't really have the experience to do a perfect lesson plan, but we are uh, acquiring the knowledge to do so. What is the most important factor when you plan your online lesson?
For me, it is that the learners learn. I mean, I try to be repetitive with my activities. So I show them the topic. Then I try to make them speak, produce. Then I try to make them write. I try to focus in all of the skills in different ways. So the knowledge gets stuck in their head and that they practice as much as they can. I try to make those kind of activities where they can produce freely, and there are others where I can get some proof that they know what they're doing and that they learn the lesson. The most important thing for me, so they learn.
Since you can completely control what your students are doing, I really work on get their attention. I do first, um, while when having an online session, is to tell them what I expect for them, what I want them to achieve, so they can have an idea or what I want them to do or what I want them to learn. Peter Goodyear says in the article, you need really communicative skills. Try a lot to get the confidence or the trust of my students, even if it is not face-to-face sessions. I want them to feel confident, or the more I know about their lives, the more personal it is my relation with them, the most I will know about them and the most I will relate my content to them. so that will be relevant for them and they will get engaged. I also try to my lessons to be more practice than theory.
Yes, Nadia?
Yeah, just as Sam was speaking, I got this idea too that, yeah, it is really important to catch their attention. And I consider that as they are in front of a computer or their cell phone or whatever, it is working and knowing how much time the activities will take so they don't drift away.
So then both of you agree that attention is really important, especially right now, because being honest, it's really easy to get distracted with your cell phone or with your family, with your dog, and everything that surrounds you. Okay, so for the next question.
Well, for me, online education is more structured. I mean, it's a course that already has their guidelines and their evaluation lines and everything ready for the learner. And the learner knows that they are going to learn online. They are prepared for it. And emergency remote teaching is like what happened with COVID-19. We were switched unexpectedly. So yeah, I think that's what is missing, the preparation and the like guidelines that needed to be ready. They were not.
An author, Margarita Koole, that you need to consider carefully how the technology is going to, if it's going to help you or not, depending on your expectation. So you need to consider the environment, the context of your learners. For example, if you give them a YouTube video and you want them to analyze, you really need to be demanding on this, not only to give the instructions. And that's, I think that something that could be missing or something that is really, really important in both approaches is that the guidelines, the guidance, and the facilitation role of the teacher.
Which approach do you prefer in your classes? Tool-based or material-based, and why? Nadia, could you start, please?
Sure. I was thinking that I go more for the tool-based approach because I try to make as many activities with tools that are online. But sometimes I do have some inclinations towards material based because I share materials with them and I expect to get something from them, but not so often as with the tools. So I think it is tool based because I like them to work and to keep active during the class. That material base could be complicated in this modality. So that would be complicated for the students to present to me some materials that I asked via internet. I am more tool-based in my classes.
Okay. And Samara?
Um, Relating this to the discussion of the reading, tool-based is referred to the platforms that you use for teaching. On material basis refer for if you're going to give your students, you're going to facilitate the material to them, they are going to create it. Not only because I try to do it, I prefer both tool material as well as using sub platform, using maybe Schoology or even Facebook for learning, according to nowadays the mains. You can even add the application of daily use as WhatsApp, Google to your classes, as well as material base you can create for your students, or you can provide them an existing material.
And do you think that these materials or these tools are replacing the teacher?
Me. I don't think they are replacing us because we are overall the guidance, because if the learners do not have the teacher to tell them what to do with that material, they would be lost. So they are more of some sort of help for the teacher, not a replacement. So that's what I think.
Okay, thank you. Next question. How do you guide and monitor the work of your students in synchronous and asynchronous lessons? Samara, could you start, please?
By now, I don't manage the asynchronous sessions or lessons. I only have the synchronous. For asynchronous lessons, I think that you can have like these platforms. This is where the ability to manage the tool-based approach comes in. Asynchronous quizzes, maybe online activities, and you need maybe to to add certain requirements, for example, time limit.
They said that in asynchronous, they would check how many times they logged into the platform and the comments they had in the forums and the quality of those comments and the delivery of the work, if it was delivered on time or delayed, on all of that was a way to monitor the work of the students in asynchronous learning. And in synchronous, well, in video calls, you can check what they're doing, if they're working, and for something that I do, I send them to break rooms in the video call, and then I get into each break room for a minute or so, just to check they are working and to see if they have any questions.
So then Nadia is the only one who does asynchronous lessons? It's only synchronous, right?
And I do only synchronous, but in the reading they mentioned how you can monitor asynchronous lessons. But no, I don't have asynchronous yet.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, so moving on to the last question. How do you handle evaluation in online teaching, and what is the best way for you to do this? Nadia, could you start, please?
Well, I haven't been evaluating yet, but I think good ways to evaluate are by checking all the work done during the course, checking if they logged into the classes, if they participated when asked, if they delivered their materials, if they participated in the activities. So it's kind of complicated because now we have to be more, how do you say it? More considering. I mean, you have to consider that they are in front of a computer for hours, and it's not just your class. They have other things. So you have to be nicer to them and consider all of the factors that are around them. They get distracted, their families in the same house, sometimes in the same room, and it's difficult. Sometimes they share the device. So you have to consider all of this and be nicer to your students. Well, I think so.
Okay. What about you, Samara? Have you already evaluated your students?
Well, I think that I don't know. It really depends on what I want my students to do. Um, for example, in diagnostic evaluation, what I did was for literally ask them why they know about the language, which word they know, where they get that words, if they know the meaning of that words, because that's what um, that's what that what that was all that they know. Just only words. They didn't know how to write a sentence, how to about grammar or vocabulary. Maybe they know pronunciation, but that's all. But I know that's what I know because I literally asked them, "What do you know? How do you meet the language?" For formative evaluation, uh, I it's difficult to work with children, but what I do is to use my the tools that I have, the Zoom platform, the sharing my screen, what I wanted to, what I want to get from them. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. And we will go on to the conclusion. So, even though we are uh, students of the BA, and we have some knowledge, this new reality has made us investigate or research about some applications or ways that we can